Hi, Nancy.
Welcome to Season 1, Episode 22 of the Front Porch Book Club.
The Front Porch Book Club is a podcast that meets twice a month.
We like to dig deep into the relationship between characters and the worlds they live in.
Grab your book and iced tea and join us on the front porch.
Lenny, February's book is, drumroll, The Lincoln Highway by Amor Towles. I am so happy we're talking about this book. I loved his previous book, A Gentleman in Moscow, and I couldn't wait to read this one, and I really loved it.
Oh yeah, this is my first book that I've read with Amor Towles. This book is set in the 1950s, and we follow three young men and one of the young men or teenagers' little brothers on a trip along the Lincoln Highway. And that Lincoln Highway goes right here through York, PA, Nance. It's called Route 462 as it runs through York.
Or Market Street.
Or Market Street, yeah. And it runs all the way across the United States. The book is about their adventures, not so much about the Lincoln Highway. That's how they get around. But it's really about their adventures along the way.
Yeah, I agree. When I saw the title of the book and read just a brief description, I thought, oh, I wonder if I'll learn about a lot of little towns along the way. You know, maybe that's kind of the central idea of the story. No, it is actually not. It mostly focuses on the inner journeys of these young men and how they see life and why they see life the way they do. Yes, there's some really compelling kind of physical journey, but only part of it is along the Lincoln Highway. It's mostly around New York State. Hitch a ride with us, listeners, and we'll talk about this book.
Well, one thing, Nance, we don't always do fictional books.
Yeah.
But this one is fictional. So it's important that people know that we're going to be talking about the book. And if they don't really want to know about the plot twists and the outcome and what happens to these young men, you might want to turn us off now, read the book, and then put us on when you've done reading the book. And then you can think along about your experiences of the book as we talk about it.
Yeah, we don't want to ruin the story for anyone.
No, we don't want to do that.
Okay, so we talked about how the book isn't really about the Lincoln Highway per se, but we do get a little history along the way. As you mentioned, this is the first road that crosses the United States, starting in Times Square in New York City and ending up in San Francisco. I did not realize, despite being a undergraduate major in urban and regional planning, that the Lincoln Highway was the first road that crossed the United States. And I also didn't realize that the road was the brainchild of just a private citizen who thought that we needed a road and then went around drumming up money for it, which is so funny.
I wonder if that person had a car and that's why he did that. Like, why would you? Anyway, the book starts out there close to Lincoln.
Yeah.
Does the Lincoln Highway go through Lincoln?
It goes up and around Omaha a little bit. So it's about 60 miles north from Lincoln.
Okay. All right. So we got Emmett, who's basically, I look at him as the main character of the story.
I totally agree. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And that's kind of surprising because when you read the story, I is really Duchess.
Yeah, it is interesting how the point of view changes in different chapters. So sometimes we're inside the head of some characters, sometimes we're in the heads of other characters, and sometimes we're third person point of view, and sometimes we're first person point of view.
Yeah, and he helps you to figure that out by calling each of the chapters the name of the person whose point of view they're taking in. Yeah. So you kind of go through the scene and then you maybe have somebody else's perspective of it. Mm-hmm. But Emmett, which we say is probably the main character, he leaves the juvenile detention facility to come home because his father passes away. Yeah. And he's picking up his little brother, Billy, who's like 8. And they decide that they're going to take the Lincoln Highway and go visit their mom, who they believe to be in San Francisco, who left them when they were young. And so that's their big plan. Duchess, who is one of the kids that decided to leave the detention home on his own without permission, he wants to travel the Lincoln Highway and work out revenge on his father.
Yeah.
For framing him for a robbery he didn't commit and abandoning him so that he could go have some fun with some girl.
Yeah.
Wooly wants to go take the Lincoln Highway and go back to the family home. And actually, I think Duchess too also wants to seek revenge, but also he wants some of that money because Wooly's going to share it with him.
Oh, yeah.
That's his ticket.
Duchess is a real operator.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's got an angle for everything.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I like that the book, too, had each of these boys on their own quest. And it's really only by coincidence that they're thrown together and then that they keep getting thrown together throughout various circumstances, because Emmett basically keeps trying to shake Duchess and Wooly. He wants nothing to do with their plan to get Wooly's inheritance. He wants nothing to do with Duchess, who is just always has a scheme, usually poorly thought out. He just wants to be heading in the opposite direction with his little brother and get to San Francisco, where he is actually very skeptical that they're even going to find their mother, but he doesn't want to burst his little brother's dreams. He just wants to go to California because it is really burgeoning population, and he's figured that he wants to flip houses and establish a nice, stable life for them after his father had pretty much failed at doing that, moving to Nebraska, trying to be a farmer, knowing nothing, and failing spectacularly before he died. And took all of the money that he used to have, because they originally came from a wealthy family, and pretty much blowing it on the farm.
Yeah.
What I thought was interesting is that each of these boys really had a different goal in a big picture sense. It seemed to me like Billy was really seeking love, and for him that meant being reunited with his mother. I thought Emmett was really wanting to escape, and for him, I think escape his past, because he had basically killed someone, and that's how he ended up at the Salina Juvenile Detention Facility, even though he had not purposely done that. Duchess, totally motivated by revenge, but also greed.
Greed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was more, to me, it was more about the money.
Yeah, okay.
But I can see how you're thinking revenge too, because there were two motivating factors along the way. He was raised a scoundrel.
Yeah.
And he knew how to do that well.
Mm-hmm.
So he wanted that money for sure, but he did have a score that he felt he needed to set with his father.
He actually had a couple scores along the way that he wanted to settle.
Oh, yeah. Interesting past.
Yeah. And then Wooly, who was just a very sweet character, I think he was just looking for peace. I mean, I think he was a young man who felt like he was surrounded by expectations that he did not want to fulfill. He just wanted a peaceful existence. And between expectations and family pressures, he just felt that he could not live the life that was laid out for him.
No, I don't think he could. I didn't think he had the capacity for it.
Yeah.
And I think he knew at some level he was a disappointment.
Yes.
And he wanted to not feel that.
Yes.
Feel that disappointment.
Yeah. I think in the end, each character achieved what they set out for. They actually achieved those kind of big goals, but in ways they didn't imagine. And in some ways that were very, very sad. Do you think that what happened with each character at the end was inevitable and how it needed to be? That is, I guess I'm asking, were you satisfied with the ending?
No, I wasn't satisfied with the ending.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
No. I kind of liked the story until the ending.
Okay, so why?
Okay, I I liked each one of these characters.
Yeah.
And I liked their story. I liked how deep they each were. I mean, we spent a lot of time in each of their heads.
Yes.
And they're each precious people with experiences that have shaped who they are.
Yeah.
I believe Emmett escaped. I believe he is going to be on a journey. He is going to set a course. He is going to make his life productive. If Billy is looking for loving family connection, he has that in his brother.
Yes.
Whether or not they find their parent, who knows? But Billy is definitely connected with Emmett. So he's got the love, the family connection that he needs as he matures.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm going to tell you, I don't really like what happens to Duchess.
Yeah.
And I don't really like what happens to Wooly.
Yeah.
Now, Wooly was my favorite.
Okay. I was wondering who your favorite character would be. And I thought there was a chance it would be Wooly.
I did like Wooly. He was complex, and I couldn't quite figure out what the deal was with him.
Yeah.
Did he have an intellectual disability? Did he have some kind of mental disorder? I couldn't quite pick out what was going on there and why he made the decisions that he did growing up. There was something a little off kilter about him.
Yeah.
With the background that he had and the advantages that he had, he shouldn't have been making the mistakes and having the perspectives that he had along that journey of what was really happening around him. He comes a little disadvantaged socially. You know, there's something going on there we can't quite figure out for him. But he's a likable person.
Yeah.
He is a good friend.
Yes.
He is very loyal to those around him. Till the very end, he is loyal.
Yeah. And very giving.
Lovely person.
Yeah.
I do not like the ending of that book for him.
Yeah.
I think he would have had his peace if the sister would have dumped that husband of hers, or at least put her foot down and said, Wooly's staying here. Like, get over it.
Right.
I have a baby and I have my Wooly.
Yeah.
So get over yourself. This is my life and this is how I'm living it.
Right.
But she tried the best she could.
Yeah.
But she understood Wooly better than her mother, better than her sister.
Yeah. And loved him deeply.
And loved him and accepted him the way that he was and understood him. And so if Wooly could have ended up with that sister, I think he could have had a really nice life.
Yeah.
Oh, Nance, who was your favorite?
I really loved Billy. Billy is the little brother. And I think mostly because he had such a purity of purpose and he was so innocent. He was such an open and trusting character. And I found all of that endearing. Now, you do cringe. Here he is, you know, setting out on this journey with his brother who loves him deeply, with Wooly, who is a wonderful person, but you kind of wonder, can Wooly take care of him? The few times that Billy is in Wooly's care, you realize the two of them together are not able to face the world. So you worry about it. And then, of course, there's Duchess, who is willing to do anything to get what he's looking for. So you kind of worry about Billy. And he does lose some of his innocence along the way. Not mostly from the other three boys, but the most scary one for me was that pretty bad dude who nearly kills him.
The pastor or the reverend, that they call him.
right, on the train. But his innocence and openness and his way of looking at the world actually ends up changing the lives of two other characters who are really touched by him. One is an author that he admires deeply, and the other is what I would call a kind of a tortured soul, a veteran who's come home from World War II. And he sets the two of them on a totally different path than they expected because they've met him.
I did like that part of it. I did love that his sweetness and his innocence led two people that would have never connected otherwise onto their own adventure.
Yeah.
In this story. I loved that. And I loved that he had his book bag, and in his book bag was the author's book. and how he just looked at that book all the time as he was taking his own special journey, and he was learning about what the main character does to be heroic, and he was just totally immersed into that imaginary worlds as a reader of a book that you just draw yourself in, and you just become immersed into the story. And so I loved that he had his red book and it was well worn, and that was very sweet.
That was really a neat demonstration, I think, that reading books can change us. We can get inspiration for who we can be from reading books. And you're right, Billy really does change. He was also very smart and quick, and often caught others in their own mistakes or misconceptions, caught Duchess in some of Duchess's lies, but he didn't really do so in a gotcha kind of way, but just he trusted everyone. So he was just wanting to understand why they were saying or doing or believing things that were counter to what he understood. And that was really funny sometimes. And I like those humorous bits as well.
Yeah, I liked the fact that he told the principal he wasn't going to dive under the desk on those raids, that the alarm sounds and you have to crawl under your desk and put your hands over your head, because that wasn't going to protect him from a nuclear fallout,
right.
So they decided to put him in charge of checking all the classrooms.
Right. A smart principal.
Yeah. We'll give him the clipboard and make sure all the doors are closed and all the kids are under. Yeah. And that seemed to work out okay.
Right.
Okay, Nance. So I looked at this book on the Kindle. I start my Kindle, I go through it. So it didn't occur to me until I was pretty far in the book that it starts with a chapter 10 and it works its way backwards to like 1.
Yeah.
And so when I would get to the chapter, I was really focused more on the person's name and what perspective that chapter was going to be on than anything else. But why is it this way? It really is the 10 days of this journey. And I lost track of those 10 days because there was so much that happened.
Yeah.
That all happened in a week and a half, that they came from Lincoln to New York, had all of those adventures, went to the Adirondacks. I mean, it just unbelievable. So much happens. But that was really interesting. I'm curious as to why he decided to do it that way. Did you realize that when you were reading it?
Since I wasn't reading on a Kindle, and it does strike me, you talk about your Kindle a lot. We should probably see if they would like to be a sponsor of our podcast.
I know you go to the library. I don't go to a library.
I do often go to the library, but I did purchase this book because I think I was number 172 on the wait list for this book at my local library.
My goodness.
Anyway, I'm happy to purchase books too, because I'm happy to support authors. But anyway, I did. As soon as I opened up the book to the first chapter, it was like 10? What? Why is the chapter name 10? I did not put together that these were the numbers of days counting down. It's really funny, kind of clever, really.
It is. Do you remember how Billy, he had like a little phrase about the beginning of the journey, and that you really want to start in the middle of the journey?
Yeah, in medias res.
Yes. Okay. And so when he was contemplating where does he start with his own journey to write in his red book, he was figuring out where would the middle be. And so that's what was curious to me, is that, wait a second, he's starting at 10 and working himself. The author is going down to day 1. What significance does that have to do with the middle of the journey, or why was he doing that?
Yeah.
Interesting the way he did that.
Yeah. He also is interesting. Instead of using quotes around what characters say, he uses just an underscore.
You know, I liked that.
Oh, did you?
I really liked that. Now, here's a punctuation question. Why was Dennis's name in quotes?
Oh, that is so funny. I wondered that too. I think it was just like a sign of disrespect somehow. But every time he's mentioned, it's in quotes, little bunny quotes.
Yes. I'm like, did I miss something? So it's kind of like, Dennis, he gets my disrespect, but he's like so many other people. He's just trying to figure stuff out.
Yeah.
And there's these unruly kids in his house.
Pouring his wine down the sink.
Well, they had to use those bottles for the magic trick.
Right. And staining his linen napkins.
All right. So, one of the threads that kind of ripple through this book is the trauma that these kids
Yes.
experience in their background.
Yeah.
And this is where our second drop of this month on this book will be helpful for us.
Yeah.
Because they all grow up and have these interesting home lives. And then, except for Billy, who's 8, they all end up in a reform school or
Yeah.
juvenile detention facility. And it's kind of like a work farm.
Yes.
It's not like detention centers of today.
No, it's not kind of like a work farm. It is a work farm.
It's going to be hard work. You don't want to go there.
Oh my goodness, no.
So the story takes off, but then because of dealing with the past and where it is, and actually when thinking about Billy, I mean, he has trauma, but he doesn't really remember his mom much. And so,
right. I mean, he was a baby when she left.
He does remember what his brother does. And he is there for that, which is traumatic. And his father dies at his young age. And he is left in the care of Sally.
Yes. Wonderful Sally.
Wonderful Sally.
He thrives under Sally's care. And she's just a teenager. She's as old as Emmett is, 18. But she's wonderful for him.
And I really liked her character a lot.
Yeah, she was great.
She wants to escape her small town existence, and she doesn't want to take care of her father.
Right.
And be like scrubbing the house and baking all day long. She wants out of the farm and out of Nebraska, and she wants her own adventure. And she is going to find a way to get it done. And she does.
Yeah.
Whether they want her along or not, she's coming.
And with all of that, though, she is such a loving, kind person.
Yeah, she takes care of Billy. I like her for that.
Yeah.
And she takes care of Emmett, too. I can't figure out why he isn't attracted to her, or I think he's just off on leaving the area. I don't think he can see what's right in front of him.
He doesn't want any ties. He is cutting ties to Nebraska, and she would be a tie to his past life.
Yeah, just wants to get out. He's a man on a mission. He wants to leave.
Absolutely. I'm beginning to realize that a lot of fiction is about trauma, Linda.
Oh, well.
I guess I shouldn't be surprised, because most fiction is really about protagonists trying to right some past wrong or wound that they have. And you get engaged in the story to see, are they going to be successful or not at this quest that they're on. The wound that for me was the most breathtaking in the Lincoln Highway was those that Duchess's father gave him. It's so not physical wounds, although he did beat him up. He frames his son, who is innocent of a crime, so that he doesn't take the fall for it. As you said, he abandons him at an orphanage when he's younger because he wants to run around with a sexy young woman. Really a horrific father.
He is a horrific father. The best thing that guy did for him was probably drop him off with that lady that took care of him.
Yeah, Sister Agnes.
She did try to shape him, and she did really care for him so much that she asked Emmett to look after him and to be a good friend to him.
Yeah.
So you knew she loved him and cared for him.
Was there a trauma that really affected you?
What he endured was horrific.
Yeah.
It's hard to weigh one trauma against the other, but I'm thinking of Wooly and the fact that he could never measure up.
Oh, yeah.
And what he took away from that and how that shaped him, it was traumatic for him.
Yeah.
I guess since I said he was my favorite character, I'm going to say that his trauma affected me probably the most.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I thought the one interesting point about Duchess, even though we've been talking about what an operator he is what a bad role model he had in his father, and he always had an angle. It was so interesting that of the three boys, he's the one who ends up in the juvenile detention facility for something he didn't do. He was the innocent among them of crime, at least.
Nobody sure did fit right in, but yeah, he was innocent at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, at least for that particular crime. And then it's interesting that Wooly's crime was really one of innocence in a way, and Emmett's crime was unintentional as well. There's something very melancholic about that.
Boy, that's for sure. I loved that it was a thick book and that you really got to know these young men very well and how they became the person that they became. When you're inside of Dutchess's head, he means no wrong by anything he does.
That's true.
He's blind. The moral part of him is really shaded.
Yeah.
It's almost away from him. And, you know, the way he was raised by this guy that didn't have good morals, he just didn't seem to develop any kind of moral code.
Yeah.
And it was my perspective and what works for me. And it has nothing to do with the other people that are around me. I'm kind of blind to their needs.
Mm-hmm.
And because he can't see another person's perspective, it trips him up all the time.
Yeah.
And what he is looking for, he doesn't get.
Yeah.
You know, he does not get what he is looking for on this road.
Yeah, very true. The story is partially about this amazing car trip, but car, train, many ways of getting around. Made me wonder if you have a memorable car trip that you've taken.
Okay. On a lighter note, the most memorable car trip we ever took was the one where we left Steve at the gas station. We're out in the middle of nowhere, like Wyoming. There's one gas station in like 200 miles. And we
our big family vacation out west one year.
Yeah.
To see Mount Rushmore and Yellowstone Park and Four Corners.
What, Nancy, we were probably 10 or 12?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Mom and Dad left him at the gas station. You and I piled in the back seat. Mom and Dad in the front seat. I guess Steve took a while in the bathroom. I don't know. We took off and went down the road like a half hour until Mom realizes Steve's not in the back seat. I think maybe we could have been initially blamed. Why did you go so fast? He wasn't back there. Well, we didn't know. How could you not know? I think we had a lot more room in that back seat. It still didn't occur to us that he wasn't there. How horrible. My dad did a Yui right in the middle of the highway. Not that anything was coming, but he did a Yui. And we headed back the other direction. And there's our brother sitting on the curb. In a very I remember it being a very isolated gas station and very dusty. And I did feel sorry for her. It's a horrible situation. That's my most memorable.
Oh my goodness. My trip. That was so funny. I do remember when Mom realized there were only two of us in the back seat. She's like, girls, why didn't you tell us Steve wasn't back there? And we were like, we didn't notice.
Shows you how egocentric children are, you know?
And the only thing we could come up with was, well, it did seem a lot more roomy back here.
As you were stuffed down amongst the seats, you were little enough that you could sit down on the floor.
Oh, yeah.
Behind Mom's seat or Dad's seat. So you had hung out there because Steve was such a hog back there as far as room was concerned.
Steve got half the back seat. You and I got the other half. Yeah. And so usually I was sitting on the floor behind one of the front two seats, or I spent a lot of time in the back window too. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah. Those are the days when we were really concerned about children's safety in cars.
Apparently, yeah.
Oh, dear me. Oh.
That was memorable as well.
What what was your most memorable car trip growing up?
Oh my goodness. Okay, I can't top that. And mine's I would say mine's much more general, but I do remember the great car trips that we would take leaving Pennsylvania and driving to eastern Iowa to visit where Mom grew up and her side of the family. And we were such little central Pennsylvania mountain kids. It was so amazing to me that just how the horizon opened up and there were just fields for as far as the eye could see. And then, of course, going to visit our beloved cousins was also, a huge highlight. We knew when we got there that our cousins would be there and we'd have a lot of fun. And they kind of had a funny accent and that seemed very exotic. And they would do things like take us in pickup trucks to go look at the fields. I mean, it was such a different life from our lives. It was so fun.
It was a different world. It was a different adventure when we'd go there.
For sure.
And Grandma was so sweet. She was so sweet all the time.
Yeah. It's fun seeing Mom in the environment of her family, which we didn't see very often.
Oh, that Iowan accent came back almost as soon as we touched that border, man.
You're not kidding.
Mom starts talking differently. We hit that Iowa border, it all comes flooding back. Her mannerisms, her talk, everything's different all of a sudden.
Yep, she became a different person. And it was always so fun to see her with her sister because she just acted completely different when she was with her sister than we ever saw her act.
She still does. Even today.
It's true.
Kids, do you think they say that about us?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
We'll have to ask our children.
Yeah.
Oh, too funny.
So, Nance, great family memories.
Yeah.
And so that is connecting us with Larry, who's going to be our special guest speaker for when we talk about this book. Larry is the co-founder of Coyote Hill, which is right outside Columbia, Missouri. It's a lovely facility. It's a nonprofit and does foster care, licensing, and supportive services. They have a huge campus. They have a foster care community of homes on their property. They've got equine therapy for vets and the children that live there on their grounds. And we thought, who do we get to talk about this book? And we both agreed Larry McDaniel would be our guy, and he can talk about trauma and youth and kids and all sorts of things that are tied up in this book.
Yeah, and I hope he'll also tell us a little bit about Coyote Hill because it's such an amazing organization that he founded. It's just incredible the work they do. And so our connection to Larry is that he married our beloved cousin Denise.
Oh, she is our beloved cousin Denise.
Yes.
And we're so glad that she married him.
We are. We have a lot of beloved cousins.
They're all so close to our hearts. Yes, every single one. All right, so that's going to be our next episode.
Listeners can get in touch with us by going to our website at frontporchbookclub.com.
Our episodes come out twice a month, the first and the third Wednesdays. If you like the show, be sure to leave a review wherever you listen to your podcast.
Thanks for listening, and see you later, Lenny.
See you, Nance.